What's up from the Northeast? All right, so what I'm going to do today is I'm going to teach you guys how to disassemble and reassemble the Barra 250Z. And I'm not going to lie, this is the third time that I've filmed. This will be the third time that I've filmed this video in its entirety. And the reason for that is my phone kept acting up. So let's hope it doesn't act up this time and I get through this in one take. I'm going to bring you guys in closer and change the camera angle so you guys can get a point of view, and we're going to get this video started. As always, thanks for watching, guys. I do appreciate it. All right, I'm back. So what you're going to need to do this job is obviously a clean area. Get yourself some cloths to keep your hands clean, to wipe things down. You are going to need a 2.5 and 3 millimeter Allen key. If you want to take the grip off, you're going to need a 5 millimeter Allen key. You're going to need O-ring pick. You don't need to, but it's handy. Some forceps are going to be extremely handy, and I'm going to show you why a little later in the video. This is actually a C88 Machining FX valve seat tool, but this is also extremely handy, and I'm going to show you how to use why and how to utilize it. You're going to need a good punch set, a buffer tube wrench if you plan to take off your buffer tube, a flathead screwdriver, a 3/4 inch crescent, some high flash point silicone oil, and this is something new, and I've been utilizing it a lot, and it works really good, and it's the Airguns reg butter. I'm going to leave a link for this down below, and I'm going to show you guys how to use it. Okay, let's get started. To get started, we got to get this stock off. So to start, we're going to use this flathead, and we're going to get this safety off. Put pressure on one side of the safety with your finger, and unscrew the other side with the flathead until you can get it with your fingers. And that other piece should drop right out. Put it back together so we don't lose any pieces. It's good to have a little tray to put your parts in. All right, you're going to need a 3 millimeter to get this stock off. You have 2 screws. You have one just in front of your fill port and one just in front of your trigger guard. Okay, get those out, toss those aside, and that stock will pop right off. We're going to set that aside. All right, so we're going to start by taking out our regulator and getting rid of our air gauges. That's where your 3/4 inch crescent wrench is going to come into play. Crack that free, spin that off. You do have an O-ring. Get that with our pick. We're going to set that back onto the air gauge, and we're going to put that in our parts bin. Ooh. Oh, sorry. To start, you must degas the rifle. And how you do that, my gun is degassed. Do not work on a PCP unless the rifle is degassed. You are putting your life at risk if you do not degas the rifle. The degas screw is right here. It is a 2.5 millimeter. You're going to get that in there. You're going to crack that free, and you're going to bleed that air out. Do not work on the rifle if it has air in it. Now that we got that out of the way, that O-ring came right out on its own. Get that picked up, put it back on that air gauge, and we'll put it in our parts bin. Now we're going to crack that regulator free and get that out. I also suggest not taking your rifle apart unless you have a complete O-ring kit. And the reason for that is high pressure creates a seal with an O-ring, and when you degas the rifle, that seal breaks, and those O-rings can warp and misshapen, and it's just a good habit to have of keeping spare O-rings around. I will leave links in the comments, in the description to every O-ring you need. Complete block O-ring, regulator rebuild kit, and air tank rebuild kits. It's good to have, guys. I'll also leave a link for that reg butter because that's good stuff, man. It really is. Backstory to the reg butter is Warren Carter, air shootist. He was a pro paintballer for 20 years, and over 20 years he has developed this to use in his competition rifles. It works great in cold weather, it works great in warm weather, and it really makes your rifle a lot more consistent. All right, so your regulator has 2 O-rings on the outside, and you have 3 on the inside for your reg. We're going to set that aside, and we're going to start to disassemble the block. We're going to get our 3mm, and we're going to take this bolt out. So you have a little cutout right here, and a 3mm bolt. Okay, when you pull that out, be careful because there's a little metal washer in there as well. We're going to kind of work that out with our O-ring pick. I don't know if you can see that. We're going to set that back on the screw and aside, pull that bolt out, and we're going to put that screw back in its hole so we don't lose it, along with that washer. We're going to set that in our parts bin. Now we are going to take the hammer out. Going to need a flathead. Get that hammer retention screw. Just get it out further enough to where you can get it with your fingers. Then you're going to dump your spring. If you have a hammer weight in there from the Slug Power Kit, that's going to come out as well. Set that into our parts bin. You have a 3mm screw that holds that in. Pull that out. And how you get this, this hammer out is you're going to pull the trigger and you're going to pull this sear down right here with your finger. Just kind of pull that down and that'll slide right out. We're going to put that screw back in there, so again, so we don't lose it. Put it into our parts bin. Now we're going to take off these top rails. These are 3mm. You have 3 3mm, and 1 in the front is 2.5. Set those aside. Pop that back rail off. Be careful because you have, again, these little metal washers. We'll put that back in this top piece, and we're going to put our screws in there upside down so we don't lose them. Put those in our parts bin. We're going to go to our 2.5 and get that last one so we can pop this last rail off. Set that aside, and that one will pop off as well. Remember, this one's going to have one of those washers as well. Put our screws in upside down so we don't lose them. We're going to set that off in our parts bin. All right, now we're going to take this shroud off. And I'm going to show you a little trick with this piece right here to get these other pieces off if they give you a hard time. And this screw right here is a 3mm, so we're going to go back to our 3, loosen that up, and you can bring this down onto this lip and use it to get this piece off if it gives you a hard time. Tighten that down, and then we'll use it to crack that loose. Once you crack it loose, take that piece off. And this is what holds your barrel in the air tank. Quite a bit of threads. Okay, this piece right here also comes off. It's threaded onto the barrel. I'm going to unthread that. This piece has 3 O-rings on the outer and 2 on the inner. On each end, there's an O-ring. We're going to set that aside. And it's easy to remember how it goes on because it's only threaded on one end. So that threaded piece is going to go back on and screw onto the barrel. You want to make sure that's threaded all the way on. Now, to this other piece, same thing. If it gives you a hard time, use this piece, tighten it on there, and use it to crack it free. So many threads. Guess that's not a bad thing. This rifle is really a diamond in the rough. It's very tunable. So you have one O-ring on the outside and one on the inside. Put that back on. God, I really like to design and make something that could thread that on a lot faster than me doing it with my hands. Okay. Now this part's a little tricky because this barrel sits in a cutout. So you have to line that up just right to get it to go. I like to do it upside down because the barrel kind of naturally goes into the cutout. A lot easier. Screw that back on. You'll know when you get it. Don't force it. If it gets tight, that means you don't have it lined up properly. Back it back out and try again. But remember, doing it upside down, that barrel naturally aligns itself. All right, let's get to the block. This is your fill port. You have 4 screws. They are all 3mm. Go back to our 3mm. Okay, we're going to take that off. There is an O-ring right here, and then you have another O-ring inside this piece right here. Put our screws back in, and we're going to toss that into our parts bin so we don't lose anything. All right, now we're going to take the valve out. You're going to need a punch for this. You have 2 pins here and here that need to come out. Just push those right out. The valve is under tension, so it'll spring out a little bit once you get that second pin out. You're going to use your forceps to gently grab the valve poppet. You don't want to squeeze it too tight because we don't want to damage it. So just gently kind of grab and pull. It should pop right out. It's going to get stuck on that sear. Once again, we're going to squeeze that trigger, pull that sear down, and that's going to pop out. And what you have here is your valve body, which you have 2 O-rings. You have your valve return spring and your poppet. The poppet also has a little washer on top. We're going to put that back together so we don't lose it. And we will set that aside until we put it back together. The last piece to come out is this brass piece. And you're going to need a 2.5 for this. There's a grub screw in the side right here. We're going to take that out. Remember to put it somewhere where you're not going to lose it. And how we're going to get this out is it pushes out this way. So what I like to do is take a microfiber cloth and lay it over the block. Find your cutout. Take an Allen key and kind of use it to pry. And it'll push right out. Pops right out. You have 4 O-rings on this. 2 on the outside. And 1 on the inner on each side. And that's it, guys. That's your whole block disassembled. If you want to take your trigger sears out to polish them, I suggest taking a picture with your phone. That way, when you go to put it back together, you know exactly how it goes and you're not making mistakes. Okay, let's put it back together. This is where that FX valve seat tool comes in handy because it fits right in there perfectly. How we're going to put this back in, remember, you want your transfer port pointing down, and you want your grub screw cut out oriented in the proper direction, which for me is on my right side. So we're going to guide that in slowly and just pop it right in there. If it doesn't align all the way, you can kind of use something to kind of guide that cutout. Then we'll use our 2.5, put our grub screw back in. Hand tight, we don't want to over tighten anything. Now we're going to put our valve back in. Remember, transfer port up and make sure you get a good amount of silicone oil or grease on your O-rings. It's going to be a little tricky getting them past the threads, and you have these two cutouts for your pins. So you're going to want to make sure those are aligned properly as well. So get that in there and kind of work it past those threads. Same thing, to get it past this sear, we're going to have to pull the trigger and pull that sear down. I like to use this little tool again, kind of push it in. Once you get it past the sear, you can let it off. Now remember, this is going to be under spring tension because of your valve return spring. So get one of your pins, kind of get it ready. Once you get that in there, you push that pin in, and it'll hold that valve in nice. We'll get our second pin, and that valve is back in and ready to rock and roll. All right, let's get our hammer in. Take that screw out. Remember, your hammer carrier, you want your spring hole facing out. Slide it just far enough in to where you can get your screw back in. We need that. That's a 3mm. Get that back in. And remember, it won't go past there unless you pull the trigger and pull that sear back down. And we'll get the rest of our stuff, our hammer spring and hammer weight. Guide that in into the carrier, and then our hammer retention screw. That, like I said, you can get this quite a ways in by hand before you need to use a flathead. Okay, now let's get our regulator back in. Remember, cake these O-rings up real good. I like to take the reg butter and coat the sides and also coat the threads in here. And the reason for that is to get these O-rings past those threads, we don't want to mar them up. So you want to get a good amount of lubricant on it. I'm not going to waste any right now because I'm in the process of tuning this gun, so I don't want to cake it all up now because I'm just going to have to take it apart again. You're going to work those past those threads. You can turn this quite a ways in by hand. Don't want to pinch your O-ring. Make sure your O-ring is set properly. Get your 3/4 inch crescent and just kind of nip that down. Don't want to over tighten it, just nip it down. We'll get our gauges. It doesn't matter which gauge goes where because they're exactly the same thread. Work those in. Nip them up. Get your other one. Remember to, again, high flash point silicone oil or grease on all of your O-rings. Nip that back up. Let's get our bolt in. We'll finish building the block before we put the air tank back on. Get rid of some of these tools. That bolt's going to slide right in, and you have a cutout right here. What do I do with my 3mm? It's 2.5. 3mm. Kind of use your hand to line that up while holding it. Get your screw started. Get that in there. You may, once you get done tuning it, you may want to use just a tiny bit of Loctite on that one and your hammer guide screw. Make sure that functions. It does. We'll get our fill port unit and we'll get that back in. Again, that's 3mm as well. I like to put these in cross, you know, left, right, each corner. Okay, now your block is back together. We're going to slide our air tank back in. If it's giving you any resistance at all, we don't want that. Mine is giving me just a bit of resistance, so I'm going to nip that back up. Make sure that's tight. We want to align. We want to line that block up so we don't get any resistance. Remember, if you get resistance, don't force it. Just back it back out and redo it. Take your time so you're doing it right. Okay. Now we got that part done. Now we put our rails back on. Just remember, you have these little metal washers that sit in these little cutouts. They're easily lost, so you don't want to drop them. Make sure it also lines up on the bottom. And it kind of snaps down into place. Get our screws in place. Knit those down. Now for this front one, this piece has to go back on. We're not going to tighten it. And I'm going to show you why. Okay, you're going to slide that on. Remember, you have a metal washer in this one as well. This piece is going to go in that cutout. So you want to line that up. Get your back piece lined up as well into that cutout with the washer. And that'll snap right into place. 3mm in the back, 2.5 in the front. Get that on there. Go back to your 3mm so you can tighten that last screw. Don't over tighten it. Now your block's back together. Get your stock. Drop that right in. Get your 2 stock screws. You have 2 stock screws. The flat one goes in the front. These are both 3mm. Last piece is our safety. It's going to go in the same way it came out. Drop one side in. Just kind of guide that second piece in with your fingers. Screw it in as far as you can with your finger. And then we'll use the flathead to tighten it the rest of the way. And that's it, guys. That is how you disassemble and assemble the Barra 250Z. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments, and I'll do my best to answer every single one of them. I'm working on some things. I've got a aftermarket stock I'm working on, an aftermarket bolt I'm working on, and a few other little things. But I will leave in the description links to the air shootist reg butter, all the O-ring kits, and if you guys need anything or have any questions for products or whatever, just put it in the comments and I'll answer you. Thank you guys for watching. Everybody that subscribed, everybody that comments and likes. I really do appreciate that, because that's how this channel grows, is with you guys commenting, liking, subscribing, and it allows me to have fun, man, and make these videos and teach you guys, you know, how to fix these guns, how to mod these guns, you know, how to take them apart and put them back together. I really enjoy it. So let's keep it going, guys. Till the next one. Later.